Welcome back to Dinar for Veterans, the channel built by those who served, for those who served, and for every American who believes that patience, discipline, and doing the right research will always win in the end. If you are a dinar holder, a dong holder, or a rupiah holder, then what we are about to cover in this broadcast is exactly what you have been waiting for. The financial landscape of the Middle East and Southeast Asia has just shifted in a way that we have not seen in over a decade, and the signals are coming in fast, clear, and impossible to ignore. This is not a rumor. This is not forum chatter. This is documented, verifiable intelligence, drawn from central bank behavior, legislative action, international monetary policy, and global trade data. So lock in, because by the time this broadcast is over, you will have everything you need to understand where we stand right now, and why the timing has never looked more promising than it does today. Let us begin with Iraq, because Baghdad is where the most urgent developments are happening right now. The Iraqi government has officially surpassed its primary fiscal targets for the first half of this year, and that is not a small achievement. This is a nation that has spent years rebuilding its institutions, stabilizing its political environment, and modernizing its banking infrastructure. What we are seeing now is the payoff of all that work. The Central Bank of Iraq, known as the CBI, has managed to accumulate significant foreign currency reserves through its upgraded electronic payment platform, and the result is something that dinar holders have been watching for since the beginning of this journey. The gap between the official exchange rate and the parallel market rate, which was once a massive and troubling spread, has now closed to near zero. That is not a coincidence. That is a mechanical indicator that the structural barriers to a revaluation event have been removed. When the black market spread collapses, it means the system is clean, it means the money supply is under control, and it means the CBI has the confidence to make a move that reflects the true purchasing power of the Iraqi economy. The Delete the Zeros project, which has been discussed in financial circles for years, is no longer just a theoretical concept. The CBI has successfully integrated its internal systems with global banking standards, and the national project for the development of the Iraqi banking sector has now moved the vast majority of Iraqi citizens into the digital banking era. This was a mandatory requirement from the World Bank before any rate change could take place. By bringing the dinar into the formal banking system and eliminating what economists call mattress money, the CBI now has complete control over the money supply. That means they can execute a revaluation without triggering the kind of massive, uncontrolled inflation that would otherwise destabilize the country. For years, that control mechanism was the missing piece. As of right now, it is approximately 95% complete, and that number is the green light that serious analysts have been waiting for. There is also a legislative development coming out of Baghdad that has sent a shockwave through the financial community. A new bill has been introduced in the Iraqi parliament that directly addresses the sovereign value of the national currency in relation to future reconstruction contracts. This is critically important for veterans and investors to understand. Iraq is preparing to pay its international contractors in a dinar that carries significantly more value than the current rate. If Iraq were to attempt funding its massive infrastructure projects under the current exchange rate, the budget math simply does not work. The government is essentially forced by economic necessity to raise the value of the dinar. This is not speculation. This is arithmetic. The oil is flowing at record levels, the gold reserves are at an all-time high, and the debt-to-GDP ratio is among the lowest in the world. Iraq's balance sheet is arguably one of the strongest on the planet right now. The only things that kept the rate suppressed were political instability and inadequate banking infrastructure, and both of those conditions have now been resolved. A correction is not just possible, it is inevitable. The most exciting insider detail we can share with you today involves the CBI's digital payment schedule. Sources close to the central bank's technical department have revealed that a hard deadline has been set for the completion of cross-border payment testing by the end of this month. This schedule is tied directly to a major international trade summit, where Iraq intends to showcase its new financial stability and position itself as a credible peer among global economies. For that presentation to carry weight, Iraq needs a currency that is valued appropriately for international trade. The pressure to adjust the rate is now coming from the highest levels of the Iraqi government, not just from the central bank. They want to walk into that room as an equal, not as a dependent. And that desire, combined with the technical readiness that exists right now, creates a window of action that is closing faster than most people realize. One of the most significant institutional signals we are monitoring involves the International Monetary Fund. The IMF has released a technical memorandum highlighting the extraordinary progress of Iraq in meeting Article 8 requirements. For anyone who is new to this space, Article 8 is the gold standard of international finance. It signifies that a country has removed all restrictions on payments and transfers for current international transactions. When a country achieves this status, its currency becomes fully convertible and can be traded freely on the global market. Iraq has been working toward this milestone for nearly 2 decades, and the latest signals from the IMF suggest that the final hurdles have been cleared. This is the specific institutional trigger that professional observers look for, because Article 8 compliance is the prerequisite for a currency to move from a program rate to a market-driven rate that reflects a nation's actual wealth. When you hear this from the IMF, you listen. There are also reports from sources within the regional banking system that test rate environments are being updated. Several major banks in the Middle East have been loaded with pending rates for the Iraqi dinar that are significantly higher than the current official rate. These test environments exist to ensure that the banking software can handle the massive volume of transactions that will occur when the go-ahead is given. This kind of technical preparation is the final stage of any currency adjustment, and it typically happens just days or weeks before a public announcement. It is quiet, it is behind the scenes, but for those of us who know where to look, it is the clearest signal yet that something very significant is approaching. Now let us move to Vietnam, because the story there is equally compelling. The State Bank of Vietnam has issued a quiet but firm directive to commercial banks regarding foreign exchange liquidity, and the implications are enormous. For decades, the Vietnamese dong was kept at an artificially low level to support an export-driven economy that depended on cheap manufacturing costs. But Vietnam is no longer a low-cost assembly line. It has transformed into a high-tech manufacturing hub, attracting billions of dollars in foreign direct investment from some of the largest technology companies in the world. These corporations do not commit billions of dollars to a country without a clear understanding of where the currency is headed. The fact that major players are moving capital into dong-denominated assets is a signal that they expect the currency to gain value. That is smart money speaking, and smart money rarely lies. The State Bank of Vietnam has also been increasing its gold holdings at a pace that mirrors the behavior of other major central banks around the world. By backing the dong with more tangible assets, Vietnam is preparing to transition away from a dollar-pegged system. The government has recently passed legislation that allows for greater flexibility in how the dong is traded against a basket of currencies rather than just the US dollar. This is a deliberate, surgical move toward depegging, and historically, depegging events precede significant currency revaluations. We have also observed a gradual widening of the trading bands in recent weeks, which is the most classic technical indicator of an approaching rate adjustment. This is not being done to cause market shocks. It is being done carefully and strategically to allow the dong to rise based on its own economic merits while maintaining stability. The Tier 1 capital requirements for Vietnamese banks have also been increased, which is a preparatory measure that banks take before handling a significantly more valuable currency on their books. Every single one of these moves, taken together, tells the same story. Vietnam's record-breaking trade surplus and its outperforming GDP growth rate relative to the rest of the region mean that the dong is naturally inclined to move upward. The pressure is building from all sides, from international trade partners, from the investment community, and from the Vietnamese government's own ambitions for global standing. This is a classic pressure cooker scenario, where the fundamentals are screaming for a higher value and the patience of long-term holders is about to be rewarded in a very significant way. Now let us talk about Indonesia, because this is the currency that many Western analysts are sleeping on, and that is a mistake. The Indonesian rupiah is flashing indicators that are impossible to ignore for anyone paying close attention. The Indonesian government has been aggressively pursuing a strategy of de-dollarization, moving toward local currency settlements with its largest trading partners across Asia. This reduces the internal demand for US dollars and creates an organic, high-demand environment for the rupiah itself. As the largest economy in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is backing its currency with a diversified basket of commodities and a rising GDP, and the results are beginning to show up in the data. Indonesia has officially expressed its intent to join the BRICS alliance, and that move alone would fundamentally change how the rupiah is valued globally. As part of this bloc, Indonesia would gain access to a new financial settlement system that operates independently of the traditional SWIFT network, giving the rupiah direct access to a market of billions of consumers across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This dramatically increases the utility and demand for the rupiah on the world stage. Beyond geopolitics, Indonesia sits on some of the most valuable mineral reserves on the planet, particularly the nickel and critical minerals that are essential to the global electric vehicle revolution. As international corporations race to secure those resources, the Indonesian government has mandated that those transactions be settled in rupiah. That is a government-mandated forced buy for the rupiah, and that kind of structural demand creates a permanent floor under the currency's value. The planned redenomination of the rupiah, which will remove 3 zeros from the currency to simplify transactions, is not a devaluation. It is a modernization. It is designed to bring the rupiah into alignment with the country's actual economic output and make it more compatible with international payment systems. Indonesia has also launched a new digital rupiah that was built from the ground up to be compatible with modern international settlement infrastructure. This means that the moment a decision is made at the top levels of government, the adjustment can be implemented across the entire economy almost instantly. The Indonesian authorities have been transparent about their desire to increase the rupiah's international utility and position it as a dominant regional reserve currency. The combination of mineral-backed demand, digital infrastructure, BRICS alignment, and a planned redenomination makes the rupiah one of the most logical and well-supported revaluation candidates in the world today. What makes today's broadcast so significant is that all three of these currency stories are converging at the same time. The Iraqi dinar, the Vietnamese dong, and the Indonesian rupiah are not moving in isolation. They are part of a broader, coordinated shift in how global wealth is being distributed. We are watching a systemic movement by these three nations to strengthen their domestic currencies, reduce their reliance on foreign debt, and position themselves as independent economic powers on the world stage. This is a fundamental transfer of wealth from the indebted West to the resource-rich East and Middle East. And as holders of these currencies, you are not just spectators, you are participants in that transfer. For the veterans in this community especially, this moment carries a particular weight. Many of you served in Iraq. Many of you saw with your own eyes what that country was and what it has the potential to become. You have held the dinar not just as a financial asset, but as a belief that the work done over there would eventually lead to something better, for the Iraqi people and for the Americans who sacrificed to make it possible. The data says you were right to believe that. The fiscal health is there. The infrastructure is there, the institutional support is there, the only thing left is the announcement, and the signals say that announcement is closer than it has ever been. As we approach the close of this broadcast, the most important thing we can tell you is to be ready. Having a post-RV plan is just as important as having held through the years of waiting. Know which financial institutions handle exotic currencies. Have your exchange strategy mapped out. Have your tax professional engaged and informed. The moment the news breaks, it will move fast, and you want to be calm, prepared, and ready to execute. The wealth being unlocked in Iraq, Vietnam, and Indonesia is real, and it is being driven by industrial necessity, legislative action, technical banking upgrades, and geopolitical realignment that cannot be faked and cannot be reversed. This is Dinar for Veterans, and our mission is to make sure that the men and women who gave so much to this country are never the last ones to know what is happening in the global financial system. We will continue monitoring the CBI, the State Bank of Vietnam, and Bank Indonesia around the clock, and we will bring you every breaking development the moment it becomes available. The signals are visible. The momentum is real. The finish line is in sight. Stay disciplined, stay informed, and stay ready. The best is yet to come for all of us.